As chair of the commission, I call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to order at 5:11 p.m. Greetings, Ann Arbor. We're so happy to be here today. I personally am excited to be at U of M, a school that I gave a lot of my tears and sweat to as a student. So, and there are several groups that are making this meeting possible. I want to thank Tom Avaco, Bonnie Roberts, and Logan Woods of the Center for Local, State, and Urban Policy here at U of M, Ellen Weirman and Nate Hall, Campus Election Engagement Project, and Landon Myers, Campus Vote Project. It is gratifying to see so many groups that are assisting the MICRC with engaging people in redistricting here in Michigan. This Zoom webinar is being live streamed on YouTube. For anyone in the public watching who would prefer to watch via a different platform than they are currently using, please visit our social media at Redistricting Michigan to find the link for viewing on YouTube. Our live stream today includes closed captioning. Closed captioning, ASL interpretation in Spanish, Arabic, and Bengali translation services will be provided for effective participation in this meeting. Email us at redistricting@michigan.gov for additional viewing options or details on accessing language translation services for this meeting. People with disabilities needing other specific accommodations should also contact Redistricting. This meeting is being recorded and will be available at www.michigan.gov/MICRC for viewing at a later date. This meeting is also being transcribed, and those closed caption transcripts will be made available and posted on michigan.gov/MICRC along with written public comment submissions. There is also a public comment portal that may be accessed by visiting michigan.gov/MICRC. This portal can be utilized to post maps and comments, which can be viewed by both the commission and the public. Members of the media who have questions before, during, or after the meeting should direct those questions to Edward Woods III, our Communications and Outreach Director for the Commission. He can be reached at woodse3@michigan.gov. For the purposes of the public watching and the public record, I will turn to Department of State staff to take note of the commissioners present.
Good evening, commissioners. Please stay present when I call your name. If you are attending the meeting remotely, please announce during roll call that you are attending the meeting remotely. And unless your absence is due to military duty, please disclose your physical location by stating the county, city, township, or village, and the state from which you are attending. I will start with Doug Clark.
Present.
Juanita Curry.
Present.
Anthony Eade.
Present.
Brittany Kellum.
Present.
Rhonda Lang.
Present, attending remotely from Reed City, Michigan.
Steve Lett.
Present.
Cynthia Orton. Present. MC Rothhorn.
Present.
Rebecca Satella. Present. Janice Follett. Present. Aaron Wagner.
Present, attending remotely from Charlotte, Michigan.
Richard Weiss.
Present.
Dustin Witches.
Present.
All commissioners are present.
Thank you, Sarah Reinhardt. As a reminder of the public watching, you can view the agenda at www.michigan.gov/MICRC. At this time, I would now entertain a motion to approve this meeting's agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Witches, second made by Commissioner Lett. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion? All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Moving forward to our public comments pertaining to agenda topics only. Without objection, we will now begin the public comment pertaining to agenda topics portion of the meeting. Hearing no objection, we'll now proceed with public comment pertaining to agenda topics. In-person public comment. For those of you who have signed up and indicated that you would like to provide in-person public commentary to the commission, you will now be allowed to do so. You will step to the nearest microphone when I call your number, and you will have 2 minutes to address the commission. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the timer. There will also be a visual timer for you to see displayed. At the end of your 2 minutes, after you conclude your remarks, if you feel like there's something that you haven't said or you want to say more, there's a particular area on the map or in your comment that you would like to refer to, you are welcome to continue on to our public comment portal so you don't feel like your 2 minutes is up. Okay. So first in line to provide public comment is number 1. And you can step to the nearest microphone, whichever is comfortable for you. Hi, number 1.
Thank you for coming to Washtenaw County. Welcome. I understand you've got a lot of work ahead of you as well, and I'm thanking you for that. Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti tend to get a lot of the press, and they certainly have the most population in Washtenaw County, but about 2/3 of the county is actually rural and small town. I live out in that part of the county. It's so rural that I have a pheasant who's decided to nest under my farm truck this fall. As a person who lives out there, I love it. And I want to keep living out there. However, I know because of my failing vision that at some point when I'm no longer able to drive, I'm going to have to move back to the city. And that upsets me. The services, the level of services out there isn't sufficient to support me in that place as I get older. And there are lots of people like me. It's very easy to take and draw a line around a rural area and say, that's it, that's the community of interest. But from my perspective, it's helpful to have a community of interest that's diverse in a section or a legislative group that's diverse in its community of interests. I want politicians to have to earn my vote with their policies, not their partisanship. And it would also give me hope that I could age in place if we have, not only in Washtenaw, but across the state, that kind of representation in how we draw our districts. Thank you.
Number 2, please.
Thank you. My name is Diane Massal, and I've been living in Washtenaw County in Ann Arbor for 23 years. I want to thank the commission. I know I applied to be in your shoes, and I look at all the work you're doing, and I know it's a complicated task, and I want to thank you, first of all, for the service that you are providing to the state. I was initially going to comment online, but I thought you guys are doing all this work in person. It's up to me just to come here and say my 2 minutes worth, 1 minute and 31 seconds worth. So I'm doing that today. And what I come from Georgia, and I come from a city that was an isolated island in a sea of a different opinion. And I know what packing a district means. And it leads to the kind of urban and rural split that has led to a partisan divide, not only across the country, but here in Michigan. So I know there are a lot of criteria for you to consider as you plan these maps, but one of the most important criteria in my mind is a partisan fairness and making sure that we don't have that kind of packing to the extent possible. And I know that's inevitable in some places, but I want to emphasize that it doesn't mean the same number of packed Republican districts and the same number of packed Democratic districts. We need to have politicians who meet in the middle and respond to our needs and listen to us. And I want to end with one suggestion. I'm not qualified to draw these maps. I am trying to figure it out. I'm gonna keep trying. But I hope that the commission will consider, when you start to narrow those down according to the complex criteria ahead of you, that you will give us another opportunity to weigh in and give you feedback on those the ones that meet the constitutional tests that you have to meet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking the time to address the commission, and you all being the community and the public will have plenty of time to analyze, scrutinize, and add feedback to the maps that we draft, and we look forward to that process that has been started already. Number 3, please.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Perkins. I'm a lecturer here at the university, and I also live in Ann Arbor. And I helped to write the legislation that became the Michigan Independent Redistricting Commission, and I'm really proud of that. It was a really citizens-led initiative. I just heard about it on Facebook, and I could come to a couple meetings, and that's how I got involved with it. And I don't have any special training. But what I wanted to address is that I think that the thing that is most important in drawing the districts is the Voting Rights Act. That you're legally obligated to make sure that there are majority minority districts. And in order to do that, you have to look at where people live and start in those areas. I'm concerned about starting with rural areas because most of the people are in urban areas. That's where people who are non-white live, and you're going to have to deal with those issues, deal with those districts first to try to make sure that those are in keeping with the law before you move out to where people are, to rural areas where there are fewer people, frankly. And also, as other people have mentioned, the partisan lean, I think, is really important. You can consider the partisan lean. And we want to make sure that districts are not wasting votes, that they're not 80% Democratic, and that, you know, here in Ann Arbor, you know, lots of people's votes don't count because it's going to go 80% Democratic because it's just the city and not the bedroom communities around the city that are included in districts. And I also wanted to mention that this would be a time to really deal with prison gerrymandering, where people are counted where they're in jail instead of where they live, because those are two very different places. So it would be an opportunity for you to give some justice to people in those situations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to address the commission, and the rest of us do as well, not just myself. Number 4, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Gavalik. I am a first-year law student here at the University of Michigan. I actually came to one of your meetings in Novi, so I'm glad you could make it to me this time. I, first of all, just want to thank you for the work that you've been doing. The districts you've drawn, the communities of interest you've managed to preserve, it's been very impressive to watch, and I can't wait to see where you continue to go, especially once you get to the Metro Detroit area. And that brings me to my main topic today, which is a community of interest that's very close to me. Now, I've lived in Ann Arbor for 4 years at this point as a student, but I lived in Clarkston, Michigan for 22 years. For those of you who don't know, Clarkston is a relatively small town in northern Oakland County. And when people ask me where I'm from, I always say the very edge of the Detroit Metro. Clarkston has more in common with that Detroit Metro than it does with the communities north and west of it. When I live in Clarkston and I want to go eat or I want to go to the movies, I'll always go to Lake Angeles or Troy, Rochester, Pontiac. When you begin drawing congressional districts, especially in Oakland County, I know you're going to have to split that county up. There's simply too many people to do otherwise. But I ask that when you begin that process, you only split it with Wayne and Macomb counties, because those exurbs, that Clarkston, Walled Lake, Novi, they have much more in common in that county than they do with areas in Lapeer, Genesee, Livingston counties. So I very much look forward to seeing what you end up doing with those congressional districts, but I ask that you do preserve those Oakland County exurbs on their own. I've submitted a few plans online that I hope you might take into consideration. But otherwise, thank you. Look forward to seeing what you draw, and good luck.
Thank you for taking the time to address the commission. Number 5.
Hey, everybody. Brought the map back. And the reason I brought the map back is there are a few things that I noticed when I was putting this together. I was trying to reflect first my community of interest, but also other areas that had some distinctions, mainly because of the industrial character of some of the areas of southern Macomb County, what a lot of people think of like Macomb County industrial auto worker, that sort of thing. But there's something else I noticed, and I think is important as part of the VRA discussion y'all are going to have, is that I noticed that the Gratiot corridor here that I drew, which is kind of light industrial and aging commercial, I think the African-American population here doubled in the past 10 years. I was amazed. And I was also amazed that I don't believe they have any African-American state representatives or state senators in that area. Double check me on it, but I did notice I was shocked that it was that big of dramatic of a difference. And I just wanted to call your attention to it since I had it here. And I'll leave this map with everyone. There's also, I believe, in this light green zone, about 17% African-American population. And a lot of that is concentrated south of 696 is something else I noticed. This area is newer cul-de-sacs, and I didn't look at the demographics of this. It didn't, strike me. But these two areas, which by the way, the Gratiot corridor and this sort of Van Dyke Mound industrial corridor both run into Detroit. The industry, the auto factories through here run at least as far as Hamtramck, south into Detroit. It's just something, food for thought, and I wanted to point it out because I had, thought of it and I drew the whole map. Thank you for your time, folks. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for bringing our attention and for bringing your map and addressing the commission. Number 6, please.
Good evening. I'm Janet Cannon. I'm an Ann Arbor resident. I have lived out of the country for a long time, and I was very excited to come back to be part of everything that's happening now, because there's so much that's going to be our future that's being decided now and not just in this process. But it's a very exciting opportunity for you, and I imagine a bit heavy at the same time. So as everyone has said, thank you. I am very concerned about some of the preliminary maps that I saw concerning this area. I'd like to echo what Ms. Perkins said about the necessity of starting from Detroit and getting those obligations sort of taken care of, making things as in relation to the Voting Rights Act, that is sort of, if we don't start there, everything's going to be Jim cracked when we actually get to the intersection between the other areas and the Detroit area. So I really hope that you will take that into consideration. And I have been frankly worried about the preliminary maps that I've seen down here, because I don't think they do respect the overriding criteria of partisan fairness. So it seems to me if that really is the number one obligation, the way the amendment is written, if they don't respect that, then there will be all the lawsuits and all of that, and it'll be back to the drawing board. So I would really hope that you would re-examine them in that perspective now. I'd also like to echo the great importance for me of prisoner votes being counted in their community of origin. Nobody's vote should be wasted. I take it very personally that my vote is wasted here and in so many senses, and anyone else's. I don't agree that either party should be able to gerrymander, which is why you're here. And I really hope that you will make sure that's an overriding criteria. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to address the commission. Number 7. Yes, because I was, yes.
Hi, my name is Greta Cruz. I was born and raised on the west side of the state. I'm currently a senior at the University of Michigan, studying international studies and anthropology. And I'm here as both the co-chair and representative of the College Democrats chapter here at my university. I came to speak to the commission today because I wanted to emphasize the importance, as others have already, of partisan fairness when drawing the new redrawn districts. Currently, what I'm seeing is Republican-leaning districts with, again, as people have mentioned, Democrats being packed into cities. As a student that lives, votes, works, and does everything else in the community of Ann Arbor, it is no small thing to me that I feel like my vote does not go anywhere. By lumping this community of Ann Arbor all into one group, you are effectively marginalizing the communities that live within it. Ypsilanti also deserves its own representation. If you ask anyone that lives on this side of the state, Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti are two distinct communities with different needs and different populations. They deserve to be represented in both of our legislatures. I also am concerned that the committee is overemphasizing the necessity of drawing these districts into perfect square boxes. The reality of our lives is that we were not created in communities that are perfect square boxes. We don't live in perfect square boxes, and we won't be fairly represented by perfect square boxes. I sincerely hope you take into consideration that a district might look like a staircase or a pizza place, but that might be more representative of the citizens of that area than a square. In 2018, I joined College Dems as a freshman and advocated hard for the legislation that enabled this committee to be present today. It's both a full circle moment, a moment of hope, and a moment of worry to be standing and talking to you today as a senior, as the leader of my organization. And I sincerely hope that the outcomes of this redistricting process are what we hoped for 3 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to address the commission. So do we have a number 7 or we just had 2 number 6s? Okay, all right, it's fine. This is an amicable group. Number 8.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you for being here today. My name is Ellie Savitt. I am the elected prosecuting attorney in Washtenaw County. I'm also a lecturer at the University of Michigan Law School, where I teach local government, and I have litigated several voting rights cases in the past. I recognize that the point of this exercise, the politicians aren't supposed to draw maps, but given that my county position is not up for consideration, I hope my experience and familiarity with Washtenaw County's diverse communities will be helpful to the commission. I want to start by echoing what so many have said already, which is that to ensure fair maps and to avoid wasted votes, the city of Ann Arbor must be split. Vote packing is the most prominent modern feature of partisan gerrymandering. It leads to unfair maps and it leads to a legislature that does not adequately represent the preferences of Michiganders. On the state Senate side in particular, I will note that one split that would make sense is putting Western Ann Arbor and Western Washtenaw County in with the county of Jackson. That would satisfy the community of interest test, particularly because many people in Jackson County, 11%, I believe, actually commute to Washtenaw County for their jobs. The second point I want to advocate for is that in both legislative chambers, the eastern part of the county, the city of Ypsilanti and Ypsilanti Township should have its own voice. There is a pronounced divide between Ann Arbor and the western side of the county and the eastern side of Washtenaw County. It's colloquially referred to as the US 23 divide. If you look at Ypsilanti and Ypsilanti Township, it has the lowest opportunity scores in the county on metrics such as health, educational, economic opportunity. And the concerns of people in that part of the county are very different than the concerns of folks in Western Washtenaw. So I hope you will take that into consideration as you draw these maps. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for taking the time to address the commission. Number 9.
Hello, and I want to start. My name is Carolyn, and I want to thank you for your service. I am proud to have been personally responsible for over 1,000 of the signatures that put you in charge. So I'm very happy you're here. A fair map does not provide disproportionate advantage to any political party. Our Constitution requires that. We've seen so many maps do the opposite. I've watched it here. I have a sister who lives in Maryland, where it's exactly the same as it has been here, except in the opposite direction. I want to ask that you measure that partisan advantage for each whole state map that you draw, both for the state legislative bodies and for the US House. And if what you have so far is not fair, in other words, if the lean of the probable delegation it would produce doesn't come close, or doesn't come pretty close to the lean of the historical statewide votes, then please start over from scratch. Find a new approach. We're counting on Michigan to stand out in the entire United States as a fair state to vote in. Thank you very much for your service. I know very well that it's a lot of work, so appreciate you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to address the commission. Number 10, please.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Ian, and I am an undergraduate student here at the University of Michigan. I would like to describe myself as something of an amateur mapper. I've spent probably a little bit too much time trying to go through and draw my own maps. I've submitted a couple in the public comments portal, but that's not what I'd like to talk about tonight. Not to beat the dead horse here, but a lot of speakers have talked about partisan fairness. And I think it is very much to the detriment of the commission's job of ensuring maps that represent communities of interest and also are partisanly fair. Not sure if that's a real word, but I'm using it. To draw the maps without taking into account partisan data and where voters live. I believe that it is very important to include that in the process of making maps. It's kind of like trying to bake a cake and leaving out the sugar until the last minute. You've got the flour, you've got the eggs, but the sugar is very important. Second, I'd like to address some of the kind of public comments on the portal that have been specifically going after an individual commissioner for his political views that he has expressed in the past. And I feel like it really represents not only a bad faith attack on an individual commissioner, but also a lack of understanding of the nuance and intricacies of American politics. I know for a fact, based on data, publicly available data from the Secretary of State, that one of the independent commissioners has voted in both the 2016 and 2020 Republican primaries. I do not question this commissioner's independence or their ability to draw fair maps, much like I don't question the other commissioner who has been singled out ability. This is a collaborative body, and individual needs will be set aside to draw fair maps, and you will draw fair maps, hopefully. We'll see.
Thank you for taking the time to address the commission. Number 11.
Hello, my name is Zachary Solomon. I'm an undergraduate student at the University of Michigan. I'm here to talk about how the commission is particularly short-sighted on the partisan fairness aspect of the state legislative map. Well, it's important to maintain communities of interest. It's also important to balance these communities of interest with partisan fairness. Michigan's a Democratic-leaning state that hasn't elected a Republican senator since 1994 and has a full row of Democratic statewide officials. And it's vital to a fair map to consider both communities of interest and partisan fairness. Only Commissioner Eid has attempted to put together communities of interest while having the foresight to have an evenly divided legislature. We've already heard about an Ann Arbor Ypsilanti split, but another easy way to achieve partisan fairness in the state Senate would be to split Lansing and East Lansing, which each have their own distinct communities of interest. Lansing and its suburbs are more of a classic working class city, while East Lansing focuses on higher education and is a more college educated area. It also ensures dark blue areas aren't packed together in the Lansing metro. And by including these suburbs in these districts with the cities that they're connected to, it ends up not diluting rural voices in the process. Thank you.
Taking the time to address the commission. Sorry, I didn't have my microphone on. Number 12, please.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right. So I would like to thank you for all your previous mapping and transparency thus far, including the improvement to the website by including a section under the draw map tab where shape files have been shared. My name is Mark Payne. I'm the Democracy for All coordinator for the Michigan League of Conservation of Voters Education Fund. And I just want to add that public mapping sessions are beneficial, and the shape files of the daily drawn draft proposed maps that are on the website will significantly improve the public's ability to fully follow along in this critical process. Being able to follow along has become all the more important given the addition of new data analysis, including today's VRA presentation and the last few days of analysis of the COI contributions, and when available partisan scores to ensure that federal requirements, communities of interest and fairness are considered at the weight required by the Constitution as criteria 1, 3, and 4. It's also important to remember that consideration of county, city, and other boundary lines fall well below these 3 criteria and are not mandatory. Thank you for your consideration. Have a great day.
Thank you for taking the time to address the commission. We appreciate you. Number 13, please.
Hello, my name is Abdul Rahman. I'm a student at the University of Michigan, and I'm coming here, unfortunately, to be the dead horse of partisan fairness that's already been spoken about before. However, so partisan fairness. Michigan is a swing state and is nearly 50-50 Democrat to Republican. Republicans have not won a Senate election here since 1994. Our governorship switches every few years from Republican to Democrat. That really needs to be represented in the maps. It should not be that 60% of the state Senate is Republican every year, even though that isn't reflected on the executive or on the federal level. I commend Commissioner Eid, especially for taking this into account. And it is very clear that he's putting in effort to be the best commissioner that he can. And I want all the other commissioners to take notes and try to, have that foresight when they are drawing their maps by, thinking about partisan fairness, thinking about, racial demographics, and thinking about that kind of thing. So also I want to talk about Democratic geographic disadvantage. Not to say that we're here to gerrymander for Democrats, but it's true that Democratic votes in Michigan are concentrated in cities, not in rural areas. So if you draw rural with rural and city with city, you're going to end up with a Democratic pack, and it's going to be a Republican gerrymander, even if it's unintentional. The Constitution in this order writes down the provision. The first of them is making sure the population and VRA adherents are present. Second is contiguity. The third is communities of interest, which the commission's done a great job of following. The fourth one is partisan fairness. It's very important. It's very high up. It's the 4th out of 7. And then the fifth is no incumbent favorability, county, city, township boundaries, then compactness. COI is very subjective, and compactness should not be leaned upon to be a kind of thing. Also, that keep my county together is not a COI, it's simply a pack, because that is just the 6th criteria. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 14.
Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm John Erdevig, a real estate lawyer, formerly a poverty law advocate. I live here in Ann Arbor, but I emphasize not in a bubble. I'm working today on state Senate maps. I started with that because they are nicely blocky and tend to follow county lines, though I'm reconsidering that whole concept based on earlier comments. I didn't know that the process had progressed to this point, and so I'm definitely playing catch up. When I'm drawing these maps, to tell you where I'm coming from, I have clients there. I've visited, I've litigated, done business, and I actually have family ties in, for example, Hillsdale County. My first comment is about so-called commuter corridors. I don't put a lot of stock in those. Workers stream into Washtenaw County from every direction. Maybe commercial corridors are more meaningful. Second comment is I support my local knowledge today as I'm working on these with a census-based website with economic analysis and very readable maps and charts, which I recommend. It's called datausa.io. I plug in a county, compare them, and discern economic communities of interest. On the basis of my local knowledge and my poking around in these websites, Western Washtenaw County belongs in a state Senate district with Jackson County, in my opinion, and not with Livingston, if I had to choose. Jackson County belongs with Western Washtenaw County and not with Hillsdale and Branch County, as in the 2011 map. The districts I drew out of Jackson and Washtenaw County, less than 5 percentage points, if I'm reading the data right, difference in 2018, can swing Republican in a different year. I do not pack or crack or wrap lines around things, and please do not consider maps that do that kind of thing. The middle tier of southern counties, I did join because they are very rural, have cross-border ties with Indiana and Ohio. That's all I have time for. Thank you.
Thank you for providing your public comment to the commission. At this time, we're going to move to remote public comment. And after we finish remote public comment, we will allow those who have signed up to speak for a second time to speak. So individuals who have signed up and indicated that they would like to provide live remote public commentary to the commission will now be allowed to do so. I'll have Department of State staff unmute you if you're on a if you're on a computer, not a commuter. If you're on a computer, you will be prompted by the Zoom app to unmute your microphone and speak. If you're on the phone, a voice will say that the host would like you to speak and prompt you to press *6 to unmute. Also, please note that if you experience technical or audio issues or we do not hear from you for 3 to 5 seconds, we will move on to the next person in line and then return to you after they are done speaking. If your audio still does not work, you can email redistricting@michigan.gov and we'll help you troubleshoot so you can participate during the next public comment period at a later meeting or hearing. You will have 2 minutes, the same, to address the commission, and please conclude your remarks when you hear the timer. It might be more difficult to hear the timer remote, but do try to stick to the 2 minutes. And is there also a visual timer for those on? There is. Okay, so that you also have the visual timer as a reminder as well. At this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to Department of State staff for our first remote public comment.
Our first remote public comment is Mr. James Gallant. Please allow us a moment to unmute you.
Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Absolutely, yes.
All righty. This is James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition. These are my opinions. And as we were discussing earlier about the approved Robert's Rules of Order, I'd asked the prosecutor person that was out there and these lawyers that are coming up to think of this. Page 366, line 8. It says, quote, until a matter has been brought before the assembly in the form of a motion proposing a specific action, it cannot be debated. After which it must be seconded by another member. That's the whole fundamental breach that's going on here. You're starting with the discussion in order to confuse everybody. This is them making up on the fly. Now, as I was saying, the vendor products here, they're the property of the state of Michigan. You know, the value-added property. Remember, Mr. Brace stated that this is an experimental database, and Moon Dutchins said this is an experimental democracy. And now, I understand that. And I think that maybe that you folks are acting out an exercise in civil disobedience to get this experimental democracy thing that you were working at, because this is specific actions, and to get approved by the courts later. That was in the portal. The guy was talking about how Dr. Hanley made the decision to use the 3 measures and one of the efficiency gaps, and that may not have been approved by the court as stated. Now, saying that, you know, if you want any other measures, you're going to have to hire a different lawyer. So you never did vote on that. There's no policy. You didn't vote and approve these measures. And of course, the vendor said, well, hey, last night, you know, we all got together. We're going to incorporate it into the database and it's all going to be good. All this new database, I believe that Ms. Dutchins is creating what she considers to be an experimental democracy, and she's using our database to do it, the people of the state of Michigan. And we're going to have to protect ourselves from that, or at least get some royalties in the general fund when she starts, selling it. And now I do agree with Steve Lett, very slightly, just a couple times, but that we don't have to approve these recommendations.
Your allotted 2 minutes has ended, Mr. Gallant. Thank you. Gallant. At this time, we'll move to our second remote public comment. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, my apologies.
I couldn't see. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Our next remote public comment participant is Kay Lampa. Please allow us a moment to unmute you.
Hello. Hi. Hello, commissioners. My name is Kay, and I'm a student at the University of Michigan. Unfortunately, I could not be in Ann Arbor today, but I would like to start my comment by talking about the community of interest process, particularly communities of interest requests that ask to keep counties together. I realize that, and I see that Ottawa County, if someone says Ottawa County is a community of interest, for example, it fails to understand that this is a county of 300,000 people that is divided into two cities, Holland and Grand Haven, and the suburbs of Grand Rapids, which are much different, and rural areas on the east, which are totally different. Similarly, Clinton County, keep Clinton County together. Unfortunately, the northern parts of the county are rural, and the southern portions of the county are cookie cutter suburbs of Lansing and East Lansing that never really travel to the areas in the north. So community of interest process is highly subjective. Unfortunately, it's being used as a proxy for keeping counties together, which is number 6 in the Constitution and well after the partisan fairness considerations. Also, I'm concerned about commissioners talking about square districts or how nice a district looks when it is at the bottom of the priorities in the Constitution, number 7. And I also worry about how very few commissioners are concerned about creating a map that is 50-50. I want to let the commission know that no Republican has won a Senate election since 1994. Only one Republican presidential candidate has won since 1988. And you have this crucial task to create a fair map and take the time to understand cracking and packing, and that you cannot just pack cities together and push suburbs into rural areas. Thank you, and I wish you the best luck.
Thank you so much, Kay, for taking the time to address the commission. We appreciate this. At this time, that concludes our first round of public comment for both in-person and remote public comment. At this time, we'll allow those individuals who have signed up for a second time. And I believe we have one person present who is signed up for a second time to speak, and that is a remote public comment. And I will hand the floor back over to Michigan Department of State staff, Sarah Reinhardt.
Our first participant in the in-person remote public comment second round is Ian Sandler Brown.
Oh,
my apologies.
Oh, it's fine. As you can tell, my name is not James Gallant, and I'm not going to rant to you about Robert's Rules of Order for 2 minutes. So right now, I'd like to draw your attention to a specific community that I would like to see maintained at the congressional level. It's a little bit beyond what you're doing right now, but Southeast Oakland County, specifically the areas that were formerly Royal Oak Township before they subdivided into a bunch of smaller municipalities, and then kind of the southern strip of Macomb, kind of around the 696 corridor area, are very distinctly different than areas to the north of them. You could probably throw Troy into that mix as well. The areas to the north of them, specifically like Shelby Township, Macomb Township, those areas are far more exurban. They've got lower population density. They're just straight up far fewer people there. And they've got very different interests and concerns. Housing is a very big concern, and housing affordability is a concern in the area. They've got more of a connection to the auto industry and kind of historically blue collar jobs. And an additional consideration that I'd like to draw the commission's attention to is the DeQuinder corridor and the John R. corridor, which is the dividing line between Oakland County and Macomb County, and then a sub-corridor within Oakland County. Both of these areas are home to a very high population of South Asian residents. And they are split generally evenly between Madison Heights, Troy, Warren, and Sterling Heights. And I believe that it would be in the interest of keeping this community together to maintain that area at the congressional level. Not like it is exactly currently, but kind of a similar southern Macomb, southern Oakland configuration.
Thank you for taking the time to address the commission, Ian. We appreciate that.
Our next remote public comment participant is Mr. James Gallant. Please allow us a moment to unmute you.
Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay. James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition. These are my opinions. And we noticed that former speaker that was not me is not concerned about the rules at all. And we should say a little prayer for those people that don't really understand that you're not following the rules and why, and what this is doing to the fundamental principles of democracy in America, which is not your charge here. You're not to change that. You're supposed to be the Robert's Rules of Order was presented you by the Secretary of State at your orientation. It's in the materials that was provided to you, and you never did none of it. And that's what I'm saying. I believe this is acts of civil disobedience that you're going to try to challenge in court. The people of the state of Michigan are going to have to pay that. And that's what the guy was saying about this efficiency gap too. That was not really, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but was suggesting that it was not approved by the court and there was some other technicality that it was just sidebarred. And that this is a way that you're just going to try to get this into court and challenge it in court and get it maybe approved by the court. And then all of a sudden you got another one. And it's interesting, Dr. Hanley had this research, and it happened to be just specifically for the 3 measures that she was doing. And she can't even do any others. She said she can't do anything. She can only do the Excel. So, you folks don't even have a policy here now on this. This is what I'm talking about, is you're superseding the rules with like a policy. And now Ms. Reinhardt said, according to the current policy that's never been approved. You fly right through it. Commissioner Witches wanted to lock it right in. Because when you want to vote, because Commissioner Witches wants to vote, then we know we got a problem. We have to keep our good eye on that guy, okay? Because they don't want to vote. And all of a sudden they do, so they can do that for a specific reason, you see. They're going to try to lock this stuff in. And, this is really bad, really bad. And but Secretary of State Benson is going to have to be the one that explains this all in court because, the Attorney General is going to defend her. And she's the one that's under her supervision. This is all happening. And she's silent. She's MIA. She's never come to meetings. Like I said, I'm going to be looking for a recall petition for her to recall her because she has not participated in any meetings except for the first day.
Mr. Gallant, your allotted 2 minutes has ended. That concludes our public comment this afternoon. However, I would like to mention that in addition to the in-person and remote, I'm sorry, Commissioner Lang, you have a hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, and I hope I'm not out of line here, but I would just like to do a reminder that we're all citizens of the state, and the purpose of public comment is to give feedback to the commission regarding items on our agenda or even your community of interest, and not to make remarks towards other commenters. And I just want to make that, I want everybody to be comfortable giving whatever testimony that they give. And I just want to make sure that we maintain that in these meetings. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lang. I think that was an appropriate point of privilege. So I see nothing wrong with that. So after the last public comment that we had, that concludes our public comment period. As a reminder, in addition to in-person and remote verbal comment, all emailed and mailed public comment is provided to the commission before each meeting. And commissioners also review the public comment portal on our www.michigan.gov/MICRC website on a regular basis. So we appreciate everyone who provides public comment in whatever way you choose. And we also invite you to keep sharing your thoughts, communities of interest, and maps. At this time, we're going to move forward in the agenda. In our meeting earlier this afternoon, the commission reviewed communities of interest, also known as COIs, in the northern part of the Mitten, and we'll continue this work in the northwest and northeast region with the, I'm going to get it wrong. State Senate, draft districts. Commissioner Zatella, will you please facilitate this discussion, starting with, I believe we left off with Commissioner E, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so we were in the process of going through cluster A2. And just to clarify the process, because we've been sort of working out the kinks in it as we've been going, we are looking at the clusters. We are looking at our maps, and we are identifying for the 2 alternative Senate maps that we have been working with, Plan 1 and Plan 3, whether any of those COI clusters
conflict with the maps that we have, the draft maps that we have drawn, and then evaluating whether we feel there is the possibility or the need for us to evaluate moving lines at a later date. So we're not moving lines right now. We're just identifying those COIs that might conflict with the draft lines we've drawn, and then evaluating whether we want to log that conflict for a review of the moving of the lines. So I will return at this time to Commissioner Eid. We had left off at 31185, and we were moving on to 32977. So I would ask Mr. Stegall again to help us out by bringing up, just continue to work down those list of COIs so that we can evaluate where they fall and see where they fall against our lines.
And just to orient the public and our commissioners and members of the public that are physically present here, what you're seeing on the screen right now, the orange and pink and purple lines are overlays of districts that the commission has created, draft district lines. And the green shaded area, that is a COI, a community of interest that has been submitted via the public comment portal. Thank you.
All right, so it looks like this is 32977, which is the next one on the map, which I think is substantially identical to another one reviewed, but go ahead, Commissioner Eid. Do you feel we need to discuss this?
I'm pulling it up. Give me 1 second. Well, we kind of already had one that looked just like this earlier. Again, Benzie County is included in the, isn't this the exact same one that we went over earlier?
I think the other one went down one more layer of townships, but it's pretty much the same other than that.
Commissioner Eads, there are duplicates where people have sent them in multiple times, it appears.
Well, we've already discussed it. I think we can move on.
Okay, Kent, can you bring up the next one, 33317?
Okay, this one is titled Northern MI House Seat. See my letter dated June 28th, 2021 that suggests the two contiguous counties of Leelanau and Grand Traverse for an MI house seat. This map is submitted because of your request dated July 19th, 2021. And under their map notes, it says Northern MI US Senate seat. Seems to be in line with both of, or I guess all four of the state Senate proposals we've drawn. There's a little of this that goes over the border of Grand Traverse County. Any comments?
Commissioner Lett?
Lake Ann is as you can see, is pretty substantial lake out there, but there would be no reason to change the line to pull that in. You're going to go over with Minzonia, which we've already talked about, so it would appear to be appropriate.
Okay, no additional comments, Commissioner Eid. Is there something you want to log with this?
No, I'm okay with moving on.
All right, then let's move on to the next one, 33531.
Just a point of clarification. I'm doing this whole region.
Yeah, lucky you.
What was that?
Yes, lucky you.
Okay, wonderful.
You can, if you want to, you've done quite a bit. There's 30 in this cluster. If you want to, at this point, pass the baton to someone else, you're certainly welcome to do so.
I have no problem running through them, unless somebody else would want to take over.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair.
Yes, General Counsel.
Thank you so much. I just would like to take this opportunity to highlight that this was one of the areas that I flagged in the processing document that the commission had been discussing yesterday and might want to make further recommendations on when the rotation will occur by cluster or by district type. So I just wanted to flag that for the benefit of the commission.
Okay. Could you repeat that? I'm not quite sure I followed you. I'm sorry.
And I apologize for the interjection. I believe where the commission is right now is discussing rotating to a different commissioner, which is wholly appropriate. I was just flagging that it is one of the items that I have noted in the processing document, the process document, that may be shifted based on that the commission yesterday discussed potential shift in the manner in which it's set forth in the process document. So I was just highlighting it for the benefit of the commission, that if there is in fact update that could be made to that portion of the document, we would be very happy to make that if so directed.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I do think that would be beneficial, and I think that's what the commission desires. So if you could work that into the proposed draft that we have before us so we can consider it, I would appreciate it. So our process is actually, it wouldn't just jump to you, Commissioner Lett, it would jump to the next person in line, which would be Brittany Kellum. So Brittany, do you want to take over from where Commissioner Eid is?
Sure. But Commissioner Lett, that doesn't mean, because I know you're familiar with that area, that you just get to sit there and don't say anything.
I wouldn't want to upset our process.
The process is collaborative. And so are we, what is this, 30970?
This is
33531.
Yep.
The region involves Traverse City and surrounding areas that have tourism and outdoor recreation as an income and recreation focus.
And I would also point out this is identical to Schwante's ideas on Traverse Region that we discussed previously with, I'm sorry, is it Benzie Township, Steve? I can't read it well from here.
Benzie?
We discussed before. It was identical. So we've already kind of.
I don't have anything to log, any changes.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. 333828.
The map drawn reflects the area represented by District 1 of the U.S. House of Representatives. My interest in this area is to see a state of Michigan map that represents specific areas by county, school district, et cetera, so that the needs of the community remain consistent with other elected offices, i.e. local board of education, township boards, and national districts, et cetera. Individual area information that was provided. Interested in these counties as this represents my U.S. representative area, which affects how the rest of the state allocated districts are drawn. I don't have any thoughts, but I see some hands. I don't have any initial thoughts.
Commissioner Eid.
Well, this comment seems to represent a U.S. House of Representatives district, or as we've been calling it, a congressional district. But I don't believe that this map that's provided to us provides enough population for a congressional seat. It does look pretty similar to some of the Senate maps we've drawn, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the language is confusing because it's definitely not enough for a congressional seat. It's way too much for a House seat. So I don't think they unintentionally referred to it a state House seat as being so. But it does sort of comport to a Senate seat for the state. Commissioner Witches.
We're just looking at the actual current maps. This map is identical to the current Michigan Senate seat in the northern Lower Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula, except for Leelanau County. That's the only thing that's added in.
Commissioner Lett.
That would be correct. And if we're considering the communities of interest with the map that we're dealing with, which is the state Senate map, then the community of interest is within the map that we have drawn, so it appears to be appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Lett. Commissioner Eid.
I just feel like I should note a few differences between this and some of the other ones we've looked at. This one does not include Benzie County, whereas the previous few have. And on this map that we're looking at, it includes Sheboygan. I think on both of the maps that we have drawn, it splits Emmett from Sheboygan.
All right, I do see Rhonda Lang has her hand up.
Just bringing up I know we're talking about this particular cluster, but I recall another written public comment that had said something about joining Sheboygan with, I know on our one maps, we kind of had Sheboygan to the east and then Emmett to the west and had it split that way. And they had said they associate more with the two together. So just something to keep in mind when we go back and look at our lines.
Thank you. Thoughts, Commissioner Kellum?
I'm not seeing anything that needs to be changed at this time. And also considering what my peers have said, as well as more importantly, the comment that was made. So I mean, I would be fine with moving on.
Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Population significantly underrepresented, and this is 36046. Population significantly underrepresented many months of the year as households are secondary and primary residency is credited somewhere else. Very seasonal, and that was the end of that comment. But the individual area information, tourism and agriculture, seasonal economy, mini second home. I'm guessing I would say property. I don't have unless I'm missing a page. I wouldn't see anything that I would need to change here either, simply because it seems that you all have drawn, or we've drawn something that's reflective of what this person has said. But I yield to my other commissioners if they have something to say or speak to this particular cluster.
Commissioner Lett?
The big difference obviously here is that this map goes down into Benzie, Manistee, and Mason counties. However, we have considered those communities of interest. This community of interest, while we've split it, we have given it consideration for the coastal community of Benzie and down the coastline. So I think that takes care of that. Commissioner Lang spoke about Sheboygan and bringing it in there. So it covers that. So I think with the explanation of why we're considering the Benzie, Manistee, Mason split, that this community of interest is within our district as drawn and should remain that way. I do not see that a line change needs to be made.
Thank you, Commissioner Lett, for that detailed analysis. I am not seeing any additional comments.
You can definitely tell who lives and is familiar with the area. Okay, we can move on from that one.
So I do want to note that these next 4 comments, one of them is a complete duplicate and the other 3 are very similar. So they may have been written by the same person. I'm not sure, but we'll see when we see what the actual communities of interest are. But they are, the next 3 big blocks are almost virtually our next 4.
Okay.
Vice Chair Satella.
Yes.
I believe that that is displayed was the last community of interest submitted in the portal, and the remaining comments that are listed in the document are all districts.
Okay, so they're not COIs.
Correct.
Thank you for that.
Some of them might reflect or comment about COIs, so it's certainly worth reading, and I'm happy to pull any of them up on the public comment portal if you want to view them. But they were submitted as district plans and not COIs.
And just to clarify, when we see a C in front of the 4-digit number, it's a community of interest, and a P just means public comment. Is that what that stands for?
It generally means it's a district plan that was submitted.
Plan. Okay.
Plan.
Yep.
Okay.
C for
Plan.
COI and P for district.
Okay. That makes sense because I was looking at the types of listings that they have, and that would make sense that it would go with a picture possibly that I can't see. Okay.
So.
For the purpose of the public watching and those attending, or just for public record in general, what we were just discussing in terms of the plans that were included and not necessarily the COIs, both mentioned Leelanau, Grand Traverse, Benzie, Atrium, and was it Kalkaska or Kalkaska? So those are the areas that we've covered and we've included, just so we're clear that we're not just perusing or skipping by them, okay?
Chair Kellum, and just to acknowledge too that that we do have that in there. The Benzie, yeah, it's actually in there. I think we have no reason to change it. Looking at it, there's 5 counties that they want kept together for the Leelanau Early Childhood Center, and we're good with our maps as drawn.
Thank you, Commissioner Rathorn.
I believe that concludes cluster A2.
I was going to ask you, can we move to cluster 3, but my mic was off.
So
that was for Commissioner Rathorn. He would like to celebrate our progress while we decide if we're moving on to cluster 3.
Finished A2 while in A2. Congratulations.
So we have finished cluster A2. So we're now going to move on to A3. We'll move on to our next commissioner, which is Commissioner Lang. And there are 5 submissions in A3. They're still in the same area. And then there is one plan that was submitted, one district that was submitted. So I will hand the torch over to you, Commissioner Lang, and I would ask once again, Mr. Stegall, to pull up that very first community of interest we have so she can take a look at it.
Vice Chair Satella.
Yes.
I do have the description for cluster A3. If you'd like me to read that. This is rural Northeast. This region saw many submissions talking about local universities, particularly Central Michigan University, and the recreation and transportation services and infrastructure available in the area. And that description is on page 2. And the detailed information of all of the COIs comprising cluster A3 is on page 29.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, did you just say it includes Central Michigan University?
She did, yes.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lang, go ahead.
That wouldn't be in that area. That would be Mount Pleasant, which is Isabella County.
Yeah, if you look at the cluster though, the cluster is kind of huge. So it goes all the way down there. I agree with you. It's like middle of the mitten, not up in the north, but.
Okay, am I seeing I gotta be seeing so everything in the cluster's in green, correct?
No. That's just the
No.
particular community of
Oh.
interest that was submitted. If you look on the MGGG report, the
Okay,
cluster actually goes all the way down to the thumb.
that's where I got confused. I apologize. Okay, so we have our first one up, 29545.
Yep.
Okay, districts that represent their peoples, map relate to my previous comments for the commission. Thank you for your service. This would be one possible and compact mapping for the first congressional district. Upper Peninsula and Northern Lower, mostly rural in character with the exception of a few larger cities such as Marquette, Escanaba, Sault Ste. Marie. Southern counties could go to another congressional district as needed to keep districts compact. It looks like for the most part, with the maps that we already did, we didn't necessarily go to the east of the state coming out of the UP. We could, I'm seeing like Claire Gladwin. Oh, wait, no. I'm looking at the wrong thing again, aren't I? Yeah. So we've pretty much got those in our districts as they are now.
Okay.
So yeah, let's skip.
All right. So you don't see any need to log any proposed changes?
No.
Okay, then let's move on to the next one. Oh, that's interesting.
That's very interesting. Okay, we're on 3174, inland northern Michigan. These communities represent predominantly inland northern Michigan and share similar demography, culture, ethnicity, religion, and economics. They should be their own state senate district. Looking at this, there's no,
We can't.
yeah, that we're just gonna, in my opinion, we should skip it. It's not, yeah, I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry. Yeah, I would skip this one. I think I get what they're doing, just trying to keep everything in the center, but
Commissioner Lang, you don't have to think of a nice
Okay,
way.
thank
It's
you.
impossible. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
it's
just say
impossible. Let's skip it.
Yeah, we'd be creating all sorts of discontinuities, and I really don't think Midland and Sault Ste. Marie have much in common. So,
No, not at all. Yeah.
all right, can we move on to the next one?
Okay. 3. Northern Michigan, the communities on this map are similar interest and share. Didn't I already read that one?
It's a different comment, but it's very similar to the first one you looked at.
Okay. Share demographics, religion, ethnicity, economics, culture. They also are also linked by Central Michigan University in Mount Pleasant by and through its public TV station. Together, the communities have the approximate population of a congressional district. Again, while part of it fits in within the area, when you're looking at this big in Claire, Gladwin, Midland, Isabella, again, really nothing much in common with the UP. I would say we really don't need to move any lines for this particular one.
Okay, any comments? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's the end of it.
I believe that was the last.
that was the
comment
last one?
in the
Okay.
cluster. So you could move on to the next cluster, which would be cluster A4.
Okay, so let's move on to A4, which has 18 submissions. Mackinac, this cluster is made up of small towns and rural communities. Tourism is primary, agriculture is secondary. Broadband access is an issue, and access to hospitals is a big concern. Residents must travel to nearby counties for healthcare. And we have now moved on to Commissioner Lett. So Commissioner Lett, can you take over cluster A4?
And for the benefit of the public, the heat map of cluster A4 is on page 3 of the report, and the details for cluster A4 start on page 31.
Yes, it does. Okay. So we're looking at 29974, Mary's Upper and Lower Plan Rural Farm near lakes, streams, rivers, tourist lodging, mining, and small business. That looks about right to me. What she's saying, we've included in the plan with the communities of interest. Obviously, one is over in Emmett, Charlevoix County, which is the same description basically of this. So I don't see any need to change any lines. Looks like we've included them in this district already.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next one.
31142 Lake Huron Sunrise Side. A big Sunrise Side. Counties here known as Sunrise Side, Lake Huron coastline, demographically, economically, culturally, ethnically, and religiously the same. Easy for you to say. The part that we are dealing with, what are we dealing with? Is the state Senate district just the top part, Sheboygan? Or the whole pink? Now the whole brown.
The orange there is, or brown is the third map, version 3.
Okay. So it's everything in green, including the white counties are in there too, correct? Okay.
I'm sorry, this magenta color here is map 3.
Okay. The community of interest is contained completely within the map boundaries. Obviously, they didn't go over to several of the interior counties, so I would not move any lines since we have covered their community of interest within the district already.
Madam Vice Chair, just wanted to alert you that Commissioner Lang has her hand raised.
Oh, Commissioner Lang.
I apologize. I think I forgot to put it down from earlier. My apologies.
Oh, thank you.
Just as a note, Commissioner Lang and Commissioner Wagner, we can't see you on the 2 screens in front of us, so don't think that we're ignoring you. And thank you, Sarah Reinhardt, for telling us when her hands are raised. We can only see the maps on these screens, which is fine.
Sure. And for the public record and the benefit of the public, Commissioner Wagner left the meeting at 5:57.
My apologies.
Well, we definitely can't see her then.
Yeah, we still can't see her. 31151. Straits of Mackinac and the Eastern UP, the communities of interest are contained within our boundaries currently. The description is, as I previously stated, quite frankly, and I see no reason to change any lines, and we have accommodated their community of interest. All right, 311. If anybody has a comment, just say it. Otherwise, I'm going to keep moving on.
It does get lonely out there. So just so.
Okay. 31163. Basically the same comment. We have contained their community of interest with the exception of a southern portion around Aranac, it looks like here, and Bay. I do not see a reason to go down that far in that area. So I would make no line changes on this as we have accommodated the vast majority of their community of interest where we are. Next up is 31237. The Sioux Plus, it says. I'm sure our district will end up being the whole UP. Well, not quite. It's also northern lower, but I really don't feel any connection with the western UP. Once you've added Petoskey and Traverse City, I don't feel like the UP voices are heard. Well, we have added portion of Emmett County, which probably is Petoskey, but she or he is getting their community of interest basically in the eastern UP for the majority, probably at least half. I would not make any changes based upon what we've done. Community of interest has been accommodated with northern and eastern UP. I would make no changes.
Okay.
Okay. 31237, or was that the one I just did?
That's the one you just did.
Okay. 32444, Emmett and Charlevoix. They're pulling in Sheboygan. Emmett and Charlevoix continue to share a lot of similarities, have economies that rely heavily on tourism and take pride in outdoor recreation, et cetera, et cetera. Little Traverse Band of Odawa Indians is an important part of this community. Are we, Ken, are we including the Sheboygan in that district?
It appears parts of Sheboygan is in 3244.
Again, I think we've accommodated the community of interest and would make no changes in the lines. Three, 2, 4, 7, 7. What? That it? 32477.
Commissioner E.
We could go back to that last one. Well, we're not really accommodating their community of interest. It's both of the maps that we've drawn, I think, split it, because both of the splits, if I'm reading these lines correctly, split Emmett from Sheboygan.
You have a suggestion?
I would also add to me, it's kind of odd because they're talking about Charlevoix and Emmett in the comment, and yet they've grabbed this piece of Sheboygan, but I don't see any mention of Sheboygan in the comment. So I just sort of interpreted it as like they kind of overshot, because the comment is about Charlevoix and Emmett and the Little Traverse Bay Indians, and none of those are in Sheboygan. So I kind of feel like maybe this map isn't entirely reflective of what the comment says.
We got a
Commissioner Orton.
So I have two comments about this. First of all, there have been more comments about keeping those lower counties together as a community of interest with this area. So we would have to decide which one we're going to follow if we're going to move the line over to incorporate the stuff in Sheboygan County. Because of population, we'd have to take away from elsewhere. Also, we have had multiple public comments that Sheboygan wants to be with the west side instead of with the east side. But then we've had comments that wants to be with the east side as well. So we need to somehow figure that out.
So maybe it sounds like what you're suggesting is that we log examining whether we're going to include Sheboygan with Emmett and Charlevoix, or whether they would be in separate districts for the Senate map. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I think we'll need to discuss that at some point.
Yeah, so we can just put that in the log as something to discuss and then move on.
32477. There's Sheboygan. Did I mispronounce it? In the practice of gerrymandering, it says, that's all it talks about is gerrymandering. The community of interest that they've drawn that is here is Sheboygan, and I take it that we actually determined that it was going to be Sheboygan County. It's within the lines of what we've drawn. We've discussed it before. There's no changes need to be made. Three, 2, 4, 8, 5. Charlevoix County. Small towns, mostly white, rural, significant impact on tourism in the area and some farming. Fairly accurate description, lies within our district. We've accommodated them, no need for any changes. 32563. Northern Eastern Lower Peninsula, rural, marginalized economically. Northeastern Lower Peninsula. Well, it describes the Northeastern Lower Peninsula. We've drawn a couple of districts in there. There's no suggestion or statement in here regarding what might be done on a split. I think we've accommodated the Northern Lower Peninsula as best we could. I don't see a need to make a change. 32772. Sunset Side. Appears to be entirely within the district that we've drawn. Don't see any reason to comment or make any change. And that appears to be it.
All right. Okay, so we have moved through A4. I believe.
Madam Vice Chair, the next,
go ahead.
The next cluster that would be contained within the Northwest and Northeast region is cluster 28,
okay,
which is pictured on page 13, the heat map. And the detail for cluster A28 is on page 118.
So A28, 14 submissions, Central Mount Prospect area, combination of rural small towns with medium-sized cities. They share resources with Grand Traverse Bay area and report several farming communities. Next in line will be Cynthia Orton.
Just to make sure I have the right page, did you say 128? Cluster
118.
118.
Commissioners, excuse me for interrupting the process. How do we want to keep going, or will we benefit from a 10-minute stretch break?
We would.
Okay, 10 minutes? 10 minutes, we'll stretch or go to the restroom, whatever you need to do is up to you. At this time, without objection, we will stand in recess until, what is it, 6:50? Can we just do? That'll be 6:49. Thank you.
We got it. Dustin, you got it.
I call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission back to order at 6:54 p.m. Will the Secretary of State staff please call the roll, please?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. Commissioners, please stay present when I call your name. If you're attending the meeting remotely, please announce during roll call that you are attending remotely. And unless your absence is due to military duty, please disclose your physical location by stating the county, city, township, or village and the state from which you are attending. I'll start with Doug Clark.
Present.
Juanita Curry.
Present.
Anthony Eid.
Present.
Brittany Callum.
Present.
Rhonda Lang.
Present, attending remotely from Reed City, Michigan.
Steve Lett.
Present.
Cynthia Orton.
Present.
MC Rothorn.
Present.
Rebecca Satella.
Present.
Janice Follett.
Present.
Aaron Wagner. Richard Weiss.
Present.
Dustin Witches.
Present.
12 commissioners are present and there is a quorum.
Thank you so much for taking roll. At this time, we will continue on.
Point of order.
Yes, Commissioner Witches.
Given the fact that the RFP answers for the litigation,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Witches.
sorry, I'm not speaking into it.
You knew it, yep.
No, per the RFP for the local council, the questions that we're going to be asking were due. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda so that there would be a option 6B under new business to have the consideration for the vendor questions for the local council RFP that were proposed this afternoon.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Witches to amend the agenda to item 6B under new business to accommodate the new update with the RFP process, and second made by Commissioner Rothorn. Is there any discussion or debate on the actual motion?
Why are we doing this?
Madam Chair.
Exactly, General Counsel.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So the local council RFP that the commission issued had this afternoon as the deadline to submit questions in regard to the RFP. That also lists that those responses to those questions will be posted tomorrow. The commission has indeed received 3 questions that were prepared to address using the screens for the commission's consideration. But the commission did in fact receive 3 discrete questions to the local council RFP that should be considered.
Commissioner Lett.
So we're being asked to consider those right now, or those are going to be referred to the committee?
General Counsel.
Those could be, again, they would need to be adopted by the proposed answers would need to be finalized and formalized by the full commission during today's meeting.
I guess I'm somewhat confused, but that's not unusual. The subcommittee hasn't seen any of them, any responses. And we're being asked to consider these right now, today, here.
Yes, so through the chair to Commissioner Lett, yes, the questions were received this afternoon. The responses are due to be posted tomorrow, Friday, September 3rd. So the issue would be going through the 3 questions and the draft proposed answers during this meeting for the full commission's consideration. The vendor questions have never gone to any of the RFP committees. They've always been dealt with before the full body.
And Commissioner Lett, just to clarify, these are not responses to the RFP. Rather, these are questions that people who may consider responding to the RFP typically submit before a full RFP response is submitted.
Sure, take the vote. Let's go.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. The ayes have it. The motion has been adopted to amend the agenda to include item 6B, which will address the RFP and supply the responses to the 3 questions that need to be done by tomorrow. General Counsel, for clarification, would you like that to be done after our, just looking at the time, or wants us to keep going?
That's entirely up to the commission. I believe the motion moved it to add it as 6B. And I do not believe that it would require a significant portion of the commission's time when it is handled.
Okay. All right, at this time, we will continue on with our discussion of the Northwest and Northeast regions of Michigan as it pertains to communities of interest, and looking at the in-depth report provided by us to understand the clusters. At this time, I will also hand the floor over to our Vice Chair, Rebecca Zatella, to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. All right, we left off with Commissioner Orton in cluster A28. So if we could just go ahead and process through these as well as we've done the other ones. There aren't too many here. Commissioner Orton.
Okay, so I will continue as we have been, if that's what the commission wishes, but I have a question and a comment first. I think we will never get done with our work if we go at this pace. So I have a question for perhaps legal counsel. This is how our process was written by staff. However, is it necessary for us to look at and read each submission in an open meeting? The reason I ask, if you want clarification, these are not all of the public comment submissions. These are just the layer that is showing up on the heat map, and each commissioner has a copy of all of them, and they're available on the website for everyone to read. So I'm thinking it would just be so much more efficient if we as commissioners knew what area we were going to be working on the following day, and we could do our homework by going through them, and we can each bring any that there may be issues with that cross a line. And we can discuss those instead of reading each one as we come to it, because we only have a few weeks to complete the maps, which we haven't completed yet, and go through all these.
Madam Chair.
General Counsel.
Thank you so much. To address Commissioner Orton's inquiry, no, it is certainly not required that you read out loud the corresponding text for the cluster overlays. The commission has been internalizing public comment and receiving public comment and reviewing public comment throughout this process, as well as submissions from the portal. Part of what I believe Executive Director Hammersmith has as, quote, homework for the regions and the areas of the state that the commission is working through is in fact going through the COI cluster data, the public comment data, and the written submissions received. So certainly that is all consideration that commissioners are internalizing prior to the meetings. So if the commission was wanting to not read aloud those submissions, that would be in fact appropriate. The proposed process merely calls for acclamation to the cluster being read and the description of that cluster. So I hope that was responsive.
Okay, so does anyone have any comments? Do we want to keep the process this way and be going through each one individually, or what?
I have a comment.
Oh, Commissioner Lang.
There you go, Commissioner Lang. No, we need that because we can't see. You can't see.
I wasn't sure if you could or not. I'm not feeling this particular process, and I kind of get what Cynthia is saying, and I would probably go along with something around those lines. There are areas that we still need to. Now, I think though that the heat map here, okay, I guess what I'm thinking is maybe this process would work better in a more condensed area, such as your Detroit area, where we've got tons of public comment about a specific area, but it's just very time consuming. It seems like for the less populated areas when a lot of the comments are the same. And we kind of, when we drew them based off from communities of interest that stuck out in those areas, we kind of drew the maps, some of them based on it, some of the districts. So I'm kind of leaning towards what Cynthia said. And like for this particular one that's up right now, we haven't even done that area yet, have we?
No.
Yeah, so I'm not feeling the process, to tell you the truth, and I get a little confused by the multiple colored lines, but that's me.
My only concern with us doing our homework is I just want to make sure we have access and the ability to look at things the same way that EDS is helping us with, because I don't know that I necessarily have copies of the maps that we have so far. I'm sure they're probably out there on the website, but it's not something I've personally looked at. And I don't know that I would be able to be skilled enough to bring up, I'm not that comfortable with the software where I think I could put a layer on like Kent has so beautifully done for us, where I can see map 1 versus map 3, and then also simultaneously pull up the layers for the individual communities of interest. So that would be my only concern is, can we evaluate it the same way? Because here it's very obvious to look at this and be like, well, it's not in the area we're looking at, let's move on. But that's because of Mr. Stickal's skill in bringing this up and showing us the multiple lines. And so we can look at it and quickly evaluate it. And I'm just not so sure. I would be able to certainly read all the comments, but to see the maps, I think is helpful. So, maybe there's solutions to that. This isn't the only solution. The solution might be maybe we get instructions on how to do this so that we can do this on our own home computers without having the need to do it all in a public meeting. So just my thoughts on that.
Madam Chair, if I could add comment on that side. Two things. One, we are working to get the software updated so that all of you will be able to see the same thing that Kent is seeing, so that you'll be able to bring up individual COIs on that side. It's just a question of getting updated software onto your machines. In conjunction with that, I would also say that one thing that you ought to take a look at, and you can look at it now, is the spreadsheet of all these COIs that I had given to you before, that has a column of the population of each of those. And so certainly you should be, I've been tracking each one as you've been going through the COIs this afternoon. certainly knowing how many people are there or not there is an additional piece of information to help you evaluate. Thank you.
Michigan Department of State, Sarah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the current process, as it is outlined, I think what you as commissioners have started doing is going through the COIs one by one, which certainly some of the COIs, it's beneficial to do that. But I would also encourage you, for the sake of efficiency, to also consider viewing the cluster as a whole. And I might show you what I mean by that. Kent, if you could put up cluster A28. So Commissioner Lang, you're absolutely right that much of this cluster is not even located in the regions that you're examining right now. So you can see here.
This is all of A28, but we could go through them quickly and see that this one, it barely touches the Northeast region. That barely reaches it. So quite a few of these COIs, this one goes well up into the northern half of Michigan. And then we got the famous.
Oh, there's the famous hello.
So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that if you look at the cluster overall, you'll see a lot of COIs that are very similar. And for example, in the last cluster that was looked at, we saw a lot of community of interest submissions that were almost identical. So rather than reviewing each of those individually, which you all have every right to do, I would encourage you to, in addition to reviewing the materials in advance, also take a look at these clusters as well and lean into those a bit.
You can talk.
Okay, I don't know who was first. Commissioner E. Well, I'm sorry, Commissioner Villette and then Commissioner E.
Okay, I would like to say that I agree with Commissioner Orton. It is taking too long. We need to find a quicker way to do this. And then I had a question for Mr. Bass. You said you're working on it, but do you have a date or a timeline that when it will be available?
It's actually available now on the system. It's not just installed. I mean, that's what Kent's using. I'm using it. So it is available. We just need to get it installed on each of your machines.
Okay, and do you have a date that you would like to do that?
Well, we're trying to work with the Secretary of State's or with the state DOC to figure out what's the best time to get that installed on your machines. We don't know when that is though, right now. I was hoping it would happen this week.
And Sarah, do you have, he says he's working with you to get this available to us. Do you have some kind of date that we're going to be able to get this?
So it's certainly something that I can inquire about and provide to the commission.
Go ahead, Executive Director Hammersmith, please.
We were told that this software overlay was anticipated to be ready by Monday or Tuesday. So we didn't schedule anything yet with DTMB to actually upgrade all the software for you again for the third time. So as soon as we're sure it's ready, we're happy to schedule it.
Commissioner Zatella.
Can we, we're almost actually done with cluster A28. There isn't really that much in it. And I think at that point, we're done with these 3 regions that we've done. So my suggestion is that we continue to work through these today, even though I know we're not loving this process. And then my further suggestion would be next week that we return to mapping while we await that update. And then we can switch to more of the process that Commissioner Orton is suggesting, where we do our homework, we review them at home, we look at the overlays, and then we come back and discuss the ones that there are areas of concern with. That would be my suggestion, just to sort of keep us moving and being efficient and continuing to move forward.
How does that sound and feel to folks? Commissioner E?
That sounds good to me. I quite like the idea of going through the heat map instead of each individual comment. But I just wanted to point out, while we're on the topic of this process, I agree we might want to move back to mapping next week. This heat map, I just want everyone to remember, it's only one tool in our toolbox. It's only one piece of the puzzle. We also have the live in-person public comment that we received at each of our public hearings and at meetings like today. So while we do that homework, it's important that we look at those as well. Either look at your notes or go back to the YouTube channel and watch them over again, or whatever you want to do. I'm also a little worried that we may have biased ourselves a little bit with drawing the maps first. When we went through clusters A2 and A3 and A4, and we didn't really change that much. So either we're all really, really good at this, which I know I'm not really good at it, or we might be biasing ourselves a little bit. And we're focusing a lot on whether the lines include the community of interest. But I think the COIs, the people who submitted them also purposely drew at them to exclude other communities, but we're only focusing on what they're including. So it's just another factor to consider.
Commissioner Zatella?
Yeah, just on the point of bias, I don't necessarily think we're biasing ourselves. I think the issue with the Upper Peninsula is just there isn't a lot that you can do with it. It's very limited by its geography. It's surrounded by water, and the population is limited. And, for the most part, when we drew these districts, we already incorporated, to Commissioner Lang's point, we already incorporated the communities of interest while we were drawing it. So it's hardly surprising that the communities of interest that were submitted align with what we did, because we drew the map taking those into account in the first place. So I wouldn't necessarily say that's showing bias. I just think it's showing that we've done a good job so far in drawing the Upper Peninsula in accordance with the public comments that we had already received. Now, as we start moving farther down the state, it gets more complicated, especially once we get past kind of the midline of the Lower Mitten. And I think it's going to get more complicated from here. But I think that it's just reflective of the fact that we have limited options in the UP, and we listened to what we had already heard.
If there are no further thoughts, I'm actually going to give the floor back to Commissioner Orton.
Okay. I would just
Madam Chair, I just wanted to point out that Commissioner Lang has had her hand raised.
Commissioner Lang, my apologies.
Nope, that's fine. I think Commissioner Zatella said it perfectly. I don't think it's a matter of bias. I can speak for myself because I'm from that area. I think that was a big benefit being from the general area. You have Commissioner Lett, who's from that area. So with reading the public comment and being from the area, I think it was fairly easy in those less condensed states or less condensed counties and areas to get it right. Now we're going to have a harder time, I'm sure, once we get into the more populated areas, but I don't think it was bias at all.
I totally agree. And I think it's true, when we get into the more populated areas, it's going to be more challenging, and we need all of the data that we need, which we don't have everything yet. And it's September 2nd. And according to our schedule, we're supposed to be done in 20 days with all the maps and everything. This is why I'm a little nervous about the pace that we're going, but let's proceed.
Okay, Commissioner Orton, that means that we'll continue on with the discussion of COI clusters, which was led by Vice Chair Satella. And you were, for the purposes of everyone, we were looking at the supporting data for cluster A28, and Commissioner Orton is leading that discussion. Please proceed, Commissioner Orton, please.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we just skip this one for now because we haven't mapped the majority of this area.
So I'm not sure if you heard her, Kent, but she said she's skipping this one for now. Was this the same one or is this a different one?
Yeah, can you not hear me?
Oh, no, it looks like he's on a different one, 30844.
Yeah, same with this one. It doesn't overlap enough for us to make a determination.
So, Commissioner Orton,
go ahead.
Is that last one? Could we make a note to go back and visit that one? Because the current district that is drawn within the west side, this one is closer representative of public comment that we had and how those ones associate. So could we just put a note in to go back and visit this particular one when we start mapping not only that bottom one, but part of it has been mapped? And
yeah, so my understanding is that since this overlaps other regions, when we're looking at the other regions, this will come up as well.
Yep.
Is that correct?
And this region has 645,000 people in it. So it's rather large.
okay.
So we can move to the next one. We'll have to revisit this when we are doing the lower regions. Okay, so it's a little confusing to me when we have both of our plans 1 and 3 up. Can you just show one at a time, Kent?
One plan at a time?
Yeah, our number 1 and our number 3 that we're considering.
Which one would you like to look at? Version 3 and version 1 are lit
I think she
now.
said 1 and 3.
That this is just plan 1 or version 1. Or just version 3, or just version 4, or just version 2.
I think we're just focusing on 1 and 3 is what I thought.
That's 3. Do you want 1 or 3?
So if we look at the one that was just up, or we can look at this one first, doesn't matter. Can you move the box so I can see? So obviously this community of interest that's drawn is too much to fit into one district. So it's going to have to be split up.
Could you tell us the population on that, Mr. Brace? Do you have?
Yes, it's 778,000 people.
Just a tiny number.
Yeah.
So, and also wouldn't work for a congressional district because we have to include some of the, well, let's see. Well, we don't know exactly because we haven't mapped it, but for this is Senate, right? That we have our plan.
Yes, Senate is up right now, and this is a proposed congressional district. Commissioner Lett, did you have your hand up?
I would just note, and you may have already noticed this, Commissioner Orton, that the person that submitted this actually submitted it as a congressional district.
Yeah.
So then we just need to wait because we haven't worked on congressional districts yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm. And I think the next one is like that as
Okay.
well, Commissioner Orton. I'm not sure though. You can read behind me and double check.
Next one, please.
I'm sorry, area 506 is 539,000 people in this area.
Okay. And they don't say which type of district they're talking about. Oh, it does say congressional district. So let's save that for later. Oh, that was the next one. I'm sorry. That's this one. So you can go back to the last one. I'm sorry. The numbers are hard to keep track of. Okay, so this one overlaps some of what we've done. We're not going to be able to keep it all in one because of population. And this one doesn't say what type of district they're talking about. So anyone have any?
I would, Commissioner Lett?
This one, from my reading of it, the individual is simply pointing out to us that these central Michigan counties are rural, small towns, et cetera. I don't see that they're suggesting any type of district other than point out what that general area is. Clearly, when we get into it, we're looking at Saginaw Bay City and Midland, which we've heard repeatedly as the Tri-Cities, and we're gonna have to do something with that. So, I mean, I think it's just a general comment on what's there that we're gonna have to work with.
And it's too big for a House district. It's too big for a Senate district, and it would fit in within a broader congressional district. So.
Right. Okay, next one, please.
Has over 1 million people in it.
Right, so that's not going to work for us.
How many people does this have?
What commissioners it tell?
1,020,000.
What was it? I'm sorry.
1,020,000.
Yeah. Yeah, they want it as a congressional district, so obviously way too big. And then obviously it's cutting off the Upper Peninsula, which does not have enough population on its own to form its own congressional district. So problematic on multiple counts.
So move on to the next one, please. Okay, so this one, they're talking about US congressional district. Can you tell us the population there?
This one is 755,000.
Okay, so.
And it's noted as being a US congressional district in the title.
Yeah. Okay, well, we haven't worked on congressional yet, so we'll put a pin in that for when we do that. And this one, we can pick it apart and see how many laws it doesn't comply with.
Yeah.
But we can just move on.
Yeah, we can just move on.
It's got 669,000 people in it.
Thank you so much, Kim. And hello back. I think that's the end for Commissioner Orton, because I believe the next one is a plan after
Yep,
that.
that is a, Commissioner E, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment for the log. So we're gonna have to come back and re-examine where we want to put that eastern part of the Upper Peninsula. And we have 3 heat maps that all have them a little differently. We have one that has it with going down the eastern side of the state, one that has it going down the western side of the state, and one that has it with horizontally the north, like just I want to get the county names right, just the northern part of the state with Emmett, Sheboygan, Presque Isle, and Charlevoix. So I just think we should put that on the log, that we're gonna have to examine where, we put that part of the Upper Peninsula.
Commissioner Orton.
Well, yeah, I was wondering as well when we're going to rectify that, because we have drawn those districts. We have several alternative maps for that.
Yeah.
And now we've gone through the communities of interest. I think we've all gone through our own notes and, the other communities of interest submissions that aren't on the heat map. So when do we make a decision on that?
I think we all know we're going to have to go back. We have these two maps that we're kind of liking. I remember for whatever map's up right now, if this is 3 or 1, I can't remember. I think it's 3. But if you all recall, none of us were particularly happy with this because we were trying to cut out those rural counties in the center to keep them together, but we were having population issues. And then we were also trying to create 2 lakeshore districts. And so I'm pretty sure on that Huron Lake side, we didn't have enough population, but we didn't want to go into Bay City and Midland either. So we definitely would have to redraw some things here. And like I said, this was an alternative map that I think once we finished it, we were all kind of like, we don't really like it either, but it's got some good ideas we want to work with. So I think the process and the plan is we're going to continue drawing districts, and then we're going to have to come back and reconcile this and figure out how we're dividing Sheboygan and Emmett and Charlevoix and what we're doing there. But I certainly, just my point is, I don't think anyone in their mind sees this particular map as being anywhere near final, and we know there will be some line adjustments. Back to the chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Zatella. I thank you, commissioners, for the good work on establishing the COIs in the Northwest and Northeast regions. I know that that was kind of arduous and at times confusing, but we're still hanging in there together. That's the point of a process. You got to work out the kinks. So thank you for being patient with one another, and to the staff who generously is supporting us through this process. At this time, commissioners, and for members of the public watching and attending, we are going to move through the agenda to new business. And we are at item 6A. So without objection, we will move forward to agenda item 6A, Communities of Interest Regional Consideration Process. And I will ask Executive Director Hammersmith to provide information to the commission about future direction. Please proceed, Director Hammersmith.
Hold on, we amended the agenda.
Yeah, we amended that to put Julianne in here, and I can do mine in future agenda items or announcements.
Okay, sorry about that. I made the note and everything in blue. Okay, at this time, we are going to move to the amended agenda item, and that is 6B, the commission responses to the RFP. General Counsel, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And with the assistance of MDOS, the vendor questions will be displayed as well as the proposed answers. Again, these vendor questions were received this afternoon in response to the local council RFP posting. The responses are due to be posted tomorrow, Friday, September 3rd, with bid proposals due to the commission on Wednesday, September 8th. By 8 p.m. And it appears that the vendor questions are up. They're not in the screen in front of me, so I apologize. I would first note that all questions 1 through 3 are not associated with the document, the RFP itself. They're general questions. The first bidder question is, quote, when we last submitted a response to the RFP to the commission, many points were deducted from our response due to our proposed changes to some of the standard contract terms. Would those changes be weighed in a similar manner, or are there any of these standard terms subject to discussion and or negotiation? The proposed answer, response, that could be amended by the commission is all proposals timely received will be reviewed and evaluated pursuant to the issued RFP. This will include, but not be limited to, the mandatory minimum requirements and technical evaluation criteria. Each RFP is unique as to the statement of work and services sought and will be individually evaluated based on responsiveness to that RFP. Would the commission like me to proceed through all three, or would you? I'm happy to respond to any questions or feedback at this time.
Commissioner Clark.
Are these three questions coming from whom?
So excellent question, Commissioner Clark. These three questions were submitted anonymously by a potential bidder to the RFP. As Ms. Reinhardt indicated earlier, the proposals are not due until next week. So these would be clarifying questions from potential bidders that they would like answers to. We do not have the information, and the procurement team does not have the information of who submitted them. Aside from the solicitation manager, who would not share, would not be asked and would not share that information. So they are blind questions that we're providing general responses to that will hopefully be of benefit to any potential vendor. Madam Chair, I'll move to question 2. The question is, we know that Baker Hostetler firm was retained as litigation counsel, and this RFP is for local counsel only. Can you explain the anticipated scope of the work for local counsel in this regard? Would the Baker firm be lead litigation counsel and the local firm simply working with Baker to make filings and serve in other administrative capacities because we have lawyers who are licensed in Michigan? Or would local counsel have a more active role in the capacity as co-counsel to Baker? The proposed response that can be modified by the commission is the MICRC has engaged experienced litigation counsel to defend the adopted redistricting plans. The role of local counsel pursuant to the key deliverables in the RFP would be administrative in nature relative to redistricting litigation. The role of local counsel pursuant to the key deliverables in the RFP would be more active in handling Michigan-specific non-redistricting matters such as FOIA or election law issues. I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns on the potential response to number 2.
General Counsel, it doesn't appear that you have any responses or comments, rather.
And the third question, Madam Chair, moving on, is finally, giving this is due immediately after a holiday weekend, would the commission be willing to extend the deadline for responding for a week, I assume 1 week, to allow firms more time to provide a response? The proposed answer is the commission has the discretion to modify the proposed deadline by majority vote. The current proposal deadline is Wednesday, September 8th, 2021 at 3:00 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So I just noted that, again, if the commission is desirous of changing that deadline, it certainly has the authority to do that by majority vote. I noted the current proposal deadline, and I would also highlight that the length and the content of the local council RFP that was submitted under the hybrid process was significantly shorter than past RFPs. So certainly the commission has the discretion to modify that date if it so wishes, or if not, this response, I could adjust it to say that whether the commission has will not be changing it, or if it is changed, then note that as well. And the new proposal deadline, if one is adopted, would be posted on the commission's website and pushed out to not only the vendors in Sigma, That it was pushed out to, but remember, this was our hybrid RFP process. So there was a list of specific emails and formal invitations to bid that went out, and they would also be notified if the deadline was shifted. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, General Counsel. Commissioners, do we have any thoughts or questions for Julianne and Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, let me give you my opinion of all three. First one, I think that's standard procedure for an RFP, so I wouldn't see why that would be an issue at all. The second one, I think we discussed probably about a week ago when I asked you to explain the local legal counsel, and your answer is reflected here as well. I don't see any difference. And then the third one, I don't know. I don't know if we should extend it or not. Because when we did the Baker Hostetler RFP, when we approved that, as soon as we did that, people came back and wanted deadline extended, or they wanted the ability for us to put out another RFP, and we stood firm that we were going to not adjust dates. So I would say that we keep the September 8th deadline, just to be consistent with what we've done in the past. So that's my three comments on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark, and Commissioner Lett, please.
I move we accept the proposed answers to the three questions.
I have a motion made by Commissioner Lett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Commissioner Lang. Is there any discussion or debate on the actual motion to accept the three responses to the RFP inquiries? Commissioner Clark.
My only comment would be that we changed the verbiage on the last one that says we're not going to change the date, to that, rather than it's our discretion, because we're going to decide right now whether or not we'll change the date.
And Madam Chair, that was why I activated my microphone as well, as if the commission's desire is not, then the language on the third one, the commission may want to consider amending it to while the commission has the discretion to modify the proposed deadline, but by majority vote, it declines to do so.
Thank you, General Counsel. Vice Chair Zatella, please.
I move to amend the answer to number 3 to read, while the commission has the discretion to modify the proposed deadline by majority vote, comma, the commission chooses not to do so.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Zatella, second made by Commissioner Lett. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. The motion carries to amend the third response to include the verbiage while at the beginning of the response. Going back to the original motion to approve the three responses, motion made by Commissioner Lett, the second was made by Commissioner Lang. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the three responses have been approved. Thank you, General Counsel, for raising this issue for the commission.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the accommodation. I would like MDOS for their assistance with the technological issues.
All right, moving on to agenda item 7, because Executive Director, okay, great. So there are no approval of minutes for today. Moving on to staff reports, we have one staff report from Executive Director Sue Hammersmith. So without objection, I'll allow Executive Director to have the floor. Hearing no objection, please proceed to.
I just wanted to indicate the next areas that the commission would review communities of interest. And I know there's talk about getting into the mapping process. We went ahead of the communities of interest in the mapping process because we didn't have the software to display the communities of interest. Now that we do, it would seem prudent to consider the communities of interest in the clusters as the lines are being drawn, so we can do equal population communities of interest all in one process. So that would be my recommendation. If we can streamline the way that we look at the communities of interest for next week, I think that would be ideal. We can come back with recommendations. The next clusters that we were planning to look at were west and southwest. That again would be A28 and A32 to 36. And then southeast and south central, which we've already mapped in those two areas, which you have already mapped. And they would be A16 to 17 for southeast and south central, 19 to 23, 25 and 28. Again, as Commissioner Eid indicated, you'd want to look also at in-person and remote public comment. You've got index lists for that, as well as the emailed and mailed public comment. If we do, if the choice of this body is to go in that direction, those would be the areas we'd consider next week. And I can certainly put that in an email to you for clarification.
Thank you so much, Executive Director Sue Hammersmith. The only thing that I would want to add is I ask that when there is consideration to streamline the process, that there is consideration given that we are a group that tends to speak up when we have something to say. So I know that I've talked about this. So to belabor the point even more, to consider an approach that is collaborative and allows those that choose not to necessarily speak every time, gives them that freedom and choice to do so. And I think honestly, that would also speak to our ability to speed things up. I just gave the example earlier of Commissioner Lett and how he was able to drive that process. Personally, that felt very good to me, and I didn't feel like anyone felt like he was speaking over anyone else. So yeah, I think I can comfortably speak on behalf of the commission to say that we will speak up in a collaborative way if there's something that we feel strongly about. At this time, I'll move to an MDOS report. If there is one, Sarah Reinhardt, please grace us with the Michigan Department of State report.
We have no updates at this time.
And there is no report, okay. Correspondence was received in advance of our meeting today and was provided along with the written public comments to the commissioners in our meeting materials. For future agenda items, it's my understanding that there are no future agenda items to share at this time. Are there any announcements? Seeing no hands raised or not hearing about any announcements, as the items on the agenda are completed and the commission has no further business, a motion to adjourn is in order. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Witches. Is there a second? Second made by Commissioner Lett. All those in favor of adjournment, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned at 7:45. Thank you for everyone watching, all the people that helped put this together, and safe travels and be well.